personally, and I know it's for a lot of people, that stability and reassurance, it's not for me. I like the excitement of not knowing where I'm going next.
Hello, and you're very welcome to the Leadership Discoveries podcast. And this special Gen Z or Gen Z edition, depending where you are in the world, is going to really reveal a few more insights into the world of younger generations within the workforce. And this is something that I hear a lot about when I'm talking to leadership groups or people in my own practice, where they're actually talking about how do I lead in this multi-generational workforce. So it seemed like a really good opportunity to talk to some people from the world of Gen Z. And I'm delighted to introduce Barry Kavanagh. Barry, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Shirley. It's an honour. Thank you.
Great. Barry, maybe we'll get started by you telling the listeners just a little bit about yourself and what you're doing and what you have been doing indeed.
Absolutely. And like most things I do, I like to work backwards.
Yeah.
So currently I'm a customer success manager at Diligent, and Diligent is a software company. We provide software and services focused around governance, risk, and the compliance landscape. I have worked in Diligent for 3 years, and my first 2 years, however, weren't solely focused around governance, risk, and compliance, but Diligent Equity. And our equity platform is an investor relations management solution which empowers companies and investors alike. Before then, I lived many lives. I actually worked in the serviced office spaces in Dublin, and then our good friend COVID hit, so it was not a good time to stay renting and selling offices in Dublin. So I swiftly turned into the world of tech. And before that, my education, I did a master's in business management in Trinity College Dublin. Prior to that, I took a year out and went to Canada. I worked in retail management there, in operational management, and got great exposure as a leader in the retail section. And prior to that, I did an undergraduate degree in music and geography.
So very interesting and varied background there, Barry, and interested just when you talk about retail, because I think we all learn an awful lot when we work in retail. Isn't it a completely different environment to, maybe the tech world, but it's a great learning ground, I think, for people, that whole area. When I asked you, Barry, would you come actually on this podcast, you corrected me because I said, you're Gen Z, aren't you? And you said to me, Shirley, I'm actually a Zillennial, I think was the phrase that you use. So
Yes.
very much on that cusp.
On the cusp. I'm proudly on the cusp, I shall say. Yeah.
Excellent. So, Barry, maybe we'll just get started just around the topic of leadership. This is the Leadership Discoveries podcast. And what does leadership mean to you? And just in terms of that, do you think it's different to what older generations may view as what leadership actually means?
Yes, I do. So for me, leadership is a lot less about authority and more about accountability. And what I mean by that is accountability in taking up the space for creating a safe space for people to contribute, to feel safe, and to grow within the workforce. I do think traditionally, when we look at leaders, we relate them to a control, a title, a status that they may hold. Whereas for us, it's more about interaction with employees. And it's not about being the loudest in the room and taking up the most space, but it's about someone who's listening to people and then advocating on their behalf.
And do you see that? Because you've worked in a couple of environments.
Yeah, I have not seen enough of it. I think that you can never see enough of it. I have not witnessed enough of it, but I have seen it and I've not seen it. And as I said, I've worked in retail, I've worked in hospitality, and now work in tech and real estate as well. And I do feel in the more traditional sort of industries, we are still experiencing the manager employee relationship and nearly molding employees into what they should be rather than allowing them to express themselves. In more creative fields, for example, in retail or in hospitality, I did get to show my personality, and my personality was really valued in those workspaces. But I think I've seen an array of different leadership styles, and hence me struggling clearly to define what leadership means, because it really in a way is industry dependent, I do believe. But in today's world, I really do believe that it's not about authority, as I said, and it's not about holding, I am above you all, but it's just about taking accountability and having your ears open for your peers.
Very good. And just I'm just struck, Barry, already you've had quite a number of different careers. And when you look forward, do you see that same pace of change happening for you? Or do you see yourself staying in one organization for the next 20 years? Or do you see sort of different roles, different industries, perhaps? What does that look like to you?
I think a fear that I have in regards to work is staying stagnant. So today I couldn't say I would want to be in this position in 10, 15 years. I do see, for example, working in tech, it's notoriously known for maybe not being the most creative landscape. So over the last year, I've done a little side quest and completed a course in interior design to scratch that itch, to fill that need. So people in work say from 9 to 5, I'm working in finance, the cape comes off and I have a paintbrush in hand, I'm painting, drawing, wallpapering, whatever it was. And that's how I create a balance. So I don't know, honestly, Shirley, if I will be in this workplace in 10, 15 years in tech. I might go back to hospitality, I don't know. But to me, that's exciting. I look back, and if we look back at older generations, like even my parents, in a way, you kind of are funneled into a career in a way. Are you going to the civil service or where are you going? And you sit in your desk and you're there to retirement. Personally, and I know it's for a lot of people, that stability and reassurance, it's not for me. I like the excitement of not knowing where I'm going next.
When you look, Barry, in sort of that broader landscape of leaders, is there somebody that you would describe as inspiring you? It could be a personal interaction you have, it could be someone on a global stage. Who strikes you as being, sort of a really, really strong leader?
A leader who I've been asked this a few times, and my answer changes depending on what's really going on in the world a lot. But one person who's been consistent, and I see a lot of, which be it social media, be it the TV, which really to me shows leadership as well, is Stephen Bartlett. I think Stephen Bartlett is a great example of a leader who has grown multi-million dollar businesses, but also being relatable and transparent. So not only do we see him making investments on Dragon's Den, his podcast, The Diary of a CEO, to me shows transparency and vulnerability. He's not just showcasing the best of the best, the richest of the richest. He's being vulnerable on that podcast. And one of my favorite aspects of why he, to me, is an inspiring leader is, and again, to some may seem ridiculous, is his fashion and his dress sense. But what I love so much about Stephen is that he shows up as himself. And you can see that he has an interest in how he looks, and he's not confining to the norm of what we expect to see from C-level leaders, whoever it may be. He really just owns that space and carves it out.
Yeah, really interesting. And I suppose it's that authenticity as well, isn't it? That he shows up as himself. When you think of workplace culture, and of course there's a lot of talk about the future work and workplace culture, that whole area. What is it do you think people of your generation are looking for? What works?
For me, it's definitely, and through my master's in business, I really learned a word that I didn't know before is holistic. It was one of those buzzwords that I didn't know what it meant, but having done research and working on papers on it, a holistic workspace, I believe, is absolutely essential for Gen Z's working today. It's a place where you can feel safe, you can feel supported, accepted, growth, and no judgment. It's not about fitting a status quo, but it's being heard on an emotional level as well, and being able to approach your manager in times of stress without judgment, without fear of, my God, is my performance going to be marked against me if I'm saying, I'm nervous about this, I'm apprehensive about this. It's creating a well-being focus, as I said, a holistic focused work environment is, to me, number one. And what I look for when I look for jobs, I ask about corporate and workplace culture. And if I get a greenwash excuse, I know it's not for me. I need to know on a day-to-day basis, what are we doing? Not on certain months where we've just passed June, which is Pride Month. We see a lot of companies putting up their pride flags July 1st, they're thrown into the storage and we don't see them till next June. I believe that carrying an ethos 12 months of the year, 365, is something that's very important for Gen Zs in the workplace today.
Okay, and do you see a lot of that? Do you see authenticity in organizations, do you think? Are organizations getting better? And obviously, we're in a bit of a world of flux at the moment, where there's a lot going on. Do you see enough of that coming through, do you think, in the organizations that you might have interacted with, that authenticity?
Yeah, I've definitely seen a growth. I definitely have seen a growth and an importance put on, as I said, 365 wellness and inclusion. And I do know through turbulent times, we're seeing a lot of companies pulling back from a lot of initiatives. But to me, the ones that aren't pulling back are the companies that I want to work for. They're resilient companies that are not afraid to go against the norm, afraid to potentially lose a client base or investments, whatever it may be. It really shows that people are the core. And that's the companies that I love working with on a day-to-day basis in my current job, and the ones that I love following as well online.
So what then is the non-negotiable for you when it comes to, what you'd expect from a leader who's creating a space for you to work in? What's the non-negotiable if they don't do that?
Definitely emotional intelligence. A leader who is an emotional intelligent, I think, is very hard to come by in a lot of spaces, because I feel like when hiring managers are hiring leaders, we want analytical thinkers. These are the words that are top of mind, people that can project manage. But we don't see enough, I believe, of on a personal level, how they're able to interact with their peers and the people they're reporting to, their ability to navigate conflict, communicate with clarity, and build trust across differences.
Very interesting. And if there was one piece of advice that you would give to current leaders about how to lead Gen Z or Zillennials properly, what would be the advice you would give? Because I hear this a lot when I'm talking to leaders, because they look at different generations and say, well, they're not like us, or they're entitled or whatever it is. From your perspective, what is the advice that you would give to people now who are listening to this podcast, who may be in different generations, like myself?
If we were on camera to all the listeners, I would look down the camera lens and I would simply say, stop trying to mold us. It reminds me of a case where when I said, as I was working as an employee in retail, the manager before the store opened looked at us all, lined us up, and said, remember, everyone, you are just numbers, and numbers can be replaced. And from that moment, I said, if ever I'm in a position of management or leadership, that is the thing I do not want to do, to treat people as numbers. I think that naturally when we work in sales or whatever, we're so focused on targets and metrics and engagement, what it may be. But I think those differences that we have to millennials are something that we shouldn't turn our eye away from. We should look at them to see what it is. Or, as you said, they're very difficult to work with. They're so different to us. We know a lot of people resistance to change. Change is such a big thing to go through. We experienced it with COVID and working environments and working from home. But I do believe that Gen Z are ones who embrace change. And by allowing us to grow and to give our opinion, to stand up, instead of trying to mold us into, we want 10 of these CSMs, copy and paste them, that they all look the same, they all hit the same metrics, you'll get a lot more value from your employees that way. We're not looking for perfect leaders, we're looking for present leaders that are going to listen to their employees.
Barry, just along this theme, because I know you're dyslexic, and again, advice for leaders in terms of leading somebody who may have dyslexia, from your experience, what do they need to do?
I think for me personally, the thing I struggled with mostly was confidence. And especially working, as I said, I work in the investment side of stuff. I deal a lot with CFOs, the big, scary, middle aged men, predominantly, unfortunately, as well. There's a fear of making a mistake in an email. There's a fear of, God, does this sound okay? Now, luckily, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a bit with the introduction of AI over the last few years, it's helped me greatly with communicating with people. But I think for managers, it's not a disability. It's just we might just need a bit more clarity and a bit more help. And what's wrong with asking for help? I remember last week I was spelling a word that I hadn't a clue how to spell it, that Google didn't even pick it up. I wasn't even close on Google. So I actually messaged my manager and I said, Emma, can you spell this word for me? And I spoke out the word. She didn't judge. She said, I don't blame you, but she just, without judgment, without ridicule, without LOL, ha ha ha, she just said, this is how you spell it. I don't blame you for not being able to. Google couldn't even pick it up. Without judgment, without a view of, or even the laughter of it, ha ha ha, you can't spell, because it still has that microaggression behind it. We don't need that. We just need that support.
Yeah, and a great example, and a great example of the use of technology as well. Even things like voice messages as well, being able to communicate that way. So just some great advice there, Barry. And we will come to technology in a moment, Gen AI, because I'm just interested in your view around that. And we'll do that in our quick fire round, actually.
Oh, lovely.
I just have some questions for you. We have about 10 of them, so I'm going to run through those. And if you could just give me your quick fire answers.
Absolutely.
Leadership in one word.
Collaboration.
Instagram or TikTok?
TikTok.
Message or voice note?
Voice note.
There we go. Remote, hybrid, or in office?
Hybrid. Balance is everything.
Most inspiring Gen Z public figure right now?
Most prominent from the news, I would say Natasha O'Brien.
AI, game changer or job taker?
Ooh, game changer if it's led with ethics, but I do fear the job taker. But as I said, I live in the moment. So currently, game changer.
Right. Okay. And game changer for individuals, for organizations, for just how you do your work, or all of the above?
All of the above. Absolutely all of the above, for how to communicate with others, for problem solving, for getting a second opinion, everything. It's mutually beneficial for leaders and employees alike.
Favorite AI tool then? What's your go-to Gen AI tool?
I'm going to be generic and say ChatGPT, but my company has been very on top of AI, and they've actually made their own compliant, as we work in compliance and security focused AI tool. So we have in-house. So not only is it generic information, it also assists with support questions from internal knowledge. If I don't know how to help a client with someone, instead of searching all these different platforms to find, I can just type it into the search bar. It will save me a half an hour and I'll get a response within 10 seconds, as we know.
Brilliant. So you've got your own large language model, which is fantastic and being fully utilized. Brilliant. 9 to 5 or flexible hustle?
Flexible hustle, but with boundaries.
And
Definitely.
explain that a bit.
For example, I work in the Americas region, based in Ireland, but working in Americas. So my work is very flexible and I have to be flexible with how to work. It's not 9 to 5 because my market in the East Coast comes on at 2 p.m. So my calendar is open till 7 or 8 p.m. each day. If I get a meeting at 7 p.m., I don't start until 11 a.m. the next morning. And I'm flexible with how I do that and I accommodate my clients. But it also works for my schedule and my creative outlets. As I said, in the mornings, if I want to do painting when the sun's rising, I'm able to do that. So it's the flexibility, but with boundaries.
Very good. One soft skill that every leader must have?
I think I mentioned this before, but I'm going to say it again if people missed it: emotional intelligence.
Very good. Your go-to source for work or career inspiration?
Podcasts. I think podcasts, the ability to hear how others are navigating life, work in real time is great. Not only your podcast, Shirley, but
I
as I
was waiting
mentioned,
for you to
yes,
say
yes.
that. The Leadership Discoveries podcast, number one in your list.
Number one, the yearly wrap up, that is my number one podcast. But after, as I said, Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO is another great one. I find that when that comes out, very interesting. And as I said, it's not just leaders, C-suite, it's people from all walks of life.
Excellent. And then finally, one thing you would never tolerate from a leader?
Dismissiveness, because if you can't listen, you can't lead. And I have unfortunately experienced dismissive leaders in the past, and it's just so belittling. And why would you want to work for a company where you're reporting to someone that doesn't care about your opinion and wants you to be that number, as I mentioned, to just clock in, clock out, do your job, goodbye?
Barry, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and very interesting. I've learned lots. I'm sure other people have as well. Thank you very much. And thank you for your honesty and thoughtfulness in answering my questions.
Thank you, Shirley. I really enjoyed my time. Thank you.